Good afternoon, students. This is Dr. Anshoo Sharma from Government College, Jaksu. Yesterday, I had discussed the first stanza of the Ode to the West Wind by Shelley, and I had explained how the poem is divided into five stanzas, and the first three stanzas specifically talk about the effect of the west wind on the land, the sky, and the sea. So I had finished with the first stanza where the poet specifically talks about the effect of west wind on land, and I had finished with how the poet says that the west wind is all pervasive, west wind is omnipresent, omnipotent, and he uses the word destroyer and preserver for the west wind, that on the one hand it destroys everything that needs to be destroyed, and at the same time also helps preserve life for future regeneration and rebirth. So I had ended here. Today I'll do the second stanza and also the third, hopefully. Now in the second stanza, you can see on your screens that I have again marked the difficult words in bold, in the blue color. So I'll just go through the meanings. I have read the poem. I'll just quickly go through the main meanings. Like, for example, in the first line, the poet says, "You on whose stream mid the steep skies commotion." Stream is again referring to it's the flowing stream of water, right? Stream is usually used for water, but here he is using it for the wind, and there's a continuous stream of wind. This is what he's trying to say, and it causes in the mid air, in the mid sky, it causes a kind of commotion. Commotion means violent atmospheric disturbance. Okay, and loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed. Loose clouds, now the imagery in the first paragraph of the leaves falling, the dead leaves falling and being taken away by the west wind, a similar thing is being done here, and the clouds are being compared to the leaves, that they are also loose, and they are also like the decaying leaves which need to be shed. They are also kind of shaken from the heavens. They are shaken from the tangled boughs, the interlocked branches of heaven and ocean. Again, the words shed and shook. This is the sound sure is being repeated here. Then in the next line, you can see angels. Angels is reference to the clouds. Again, the theme, I mean, the idea of personification continues throughout. And here, angels is a word that is being used for the clouds. So, why are the clouds being called angels? Because they bring rain and lightning, and the rain and lightning is spread over the blue surface of the sky. Then you can see the word airy surge. Airy surge is the speed and the sweep of the wind is all encompassing. Then leave one line and see in the next couple of lines you see the words fierce menad. Now this fierce means something which is very strong, something that is frenzied, something that is full of energy or anger. So fierce, something that can scare you, and the image is that of a female worshipper of the god of wine, Bacchus. That is Bacchus, the god of wine. So Minad is the female worshipper of Bacchus. Then verge means brink, the edge. Then leave one line, and the next you see the word locks, which I have underlined. Locks is again reference to the clouds, the cirrus clouds that look like curls of hair. Again, personification, curls of hair, like curly hair, maybe of a woman, the curly locks of the hair. So the cloud seems to, look like it's got that twirl, it's got that, curl. It's like round, entwined, or it's got that twisted kind of a look. So the locks of the approaching storm, thou dirge of the dying year. Now dirge is a funeral song. Again, this funeral song is being sung for the dying year. Repetition of the word d, sound dirge and dying, dirge of the dying year. So it's the funeral song. West wind is being called the funeral song of the dying year. Dying year, again, season cyclic, I told you. Once the autumn ends, then you have winters, and after winters again, it's the beginning of the new year. So this is reference to the cycle, and this cycle of seasons is coming to an end now. Then dome, uh, dirge, dying, dome, d. That's repetition of that sound. And the word sepulcher. Now, this sepulcher is, it means a burial ground. Now, because this is talking about death of so many things, so here he says that there's a huge burial ground, and which it is roofed. Vaulted means roofed. It is roofed with all thy congregated might. It is like your collected power is kind of creating a huge roofed burial ground for all these things. Then in the next line, I have underlined solid atmosphere. Why solid atmosphere? This is a reference to the vapors that are so thick that they appear to be solid. They are not, these vapors are not actually solid, but because of the thickness, because of the density, they appear to be solid. Okay, so these are the basic difficult words of this paragraph. Now I'll just explain to you the concept, the idea that Shelley is trying to convey through this paragraph. He's basically talking about the kind of reach that the west wind has, the kind of effect that the west wind has on the skies, because skies are something far above, they are high up. Earlier he talked about its effect on land, now he is talking about its effect on the skies. So in the high and the whirling reaches of the sky, the west wind sends the clouds twisting and twirling, and they look like dead leaves. So there's a repetition of the idea of dead leaves, which are shaken loose from the branches of the heavens and the sea. So these clouds are being compared to the leaves, and they are shaken loose from the branches of the sky. Now the sky is being compared to a tree, you can say, and it's got extended branches, and from there these clouds are dispatched, they are removed, and they are like angels full of rain and lightning. Why they have been called as angels? Because angels are harbinger of good news, they are harbinger of positive energy, and these clouds, they bring rain and lightning, which is again food for earth. Without clouds, without water, life cannot survive on this planet. So they are like angels which are full of rain and lightning, and it's the west wind that brings about all this. And the other imagery, other idea is that they are scattered across the blue sky like the blonde hair of a wildly dancing girl who is the follower of Bacchus, who's the follower of the god of wine. This is the second comparison, this is the second simile, that these clouds appear to be scattered across the sky, and they seem to be blonde in color, they seem to be golden in color, and they seem to be like the curls, the wildly flying hair of a dancing girl who is highly, she's drunk on maybe wine. And the clouds seem to stretch from the horizon to the top of the sky, like the hair of a coming storm. I mean, it's the approaching storm which has been described, and it is being compared to the hair of a girl. Then he says, West Wind, you are the sad song of the end of the year, because he says he calls it the dirge of the dying year. Okay, so this is, he's trying to say that you are like the sad song, because the year is ending, the season is coming to an end, and your song has got certain sad notes because it is talking about the end of the year, it is talking about the end of the season, the death of the season. Then he says the night will be like the dome of a vast tomb, and the clouds that you have gathered are like the archways running across it. So he's comparing it to a huge burial ground which is covered in by a dome-like structure. And here he says that the night seems to be like a vast tomb, and the clouds that are gathered on top, they seem to be like the archways which are going crisscross across the sky. And then from the solid top of the tomb, it's the dark rain and the lightning and hail that seems to be falling down. So this is all the description of a sky, of a dark sky which is covered with clouds, those clouds which are going to bring rain, those clouds which are going to bring lightning, hail, and storm. And again, this kind of, the grandeur of the scene again signifies the speed, the strength of the west wind, which is going to bring about all these changes, which is the reason for all these things happening in the nature. And then finally again he ends it by saying, oh, here. This is now again and again he's addressing the west wind, because he's trying to emphasize, he's trying to delineate a certain point, is trying to highlight the power of the west wind as a destroyer. So this is the second stanza where he talks about the very explicitly he explains the effect of the west wind on the skies. Now, in the third passage, again you can see on your screens here, the sea. He's talking about the sea and the effect of west wind on the sea, and the sea is again personified as a male. So his summer dreams. Now, what is summer dreams? Like the from the peaceful summer, the autumn season, the west wind, it agitates and it kinds of wakes up the Mediterranean Sea, the blue Mediterranean Sea, who has been lying, very soothingly. He's been in his sleep, he's been dreaming, and a coil of his crystalline streams encircling noise. Now, this coil is reference to the noise that can be heard, which seems to be going up in waves. Crystalline streams. What is crystalline streams? Crystalline, something that is pure and sparkling. Then in the next line, he is referring to Pumice Isle. Pumice is it's an island which has been formed by the deposits of the lava of the volcano Vesuvius. So it's reference to a particular place in the Bay of Naples. Okay, Bays Bay is a resort in the west of the Bay of Naples. Then quivering, you can see the word quivering. This is quivering means shivering due to the movement of the waves. So there's that quivering effect. Then the word intenser, intense. This word is a result of the word, it's just an extension of the word intense, which indicates again density, thickness. Then in the next line, azure word has been used, which is again reference to the blue color. Then next line, faints. Now faints is referring to somebody being overpowered. You are being overpowered by what? Either some strong smell or some vision. So faints is overpowered. Then in the next line you can see cleave. There's a word cleave that has been used. Cleave means to part, to separate. Okay. Then sea blooms, it's not, actually it's not as if the sea is blooming, but it's the flowers within the sea which grow on the bed of the sea that are blooming. And then sapless means dry, withered, lifeless, which is does not have color, which does not have life. So something that is dry and withered, that is sapless. Then thy voice and suddenly grow gray with fear. Gray is to lose color. Gray is what? Again, like in the first paragraph, he had talked about the pale skin, the pale leaves, the white leaves. Similarly, here again, he is talking about the foliage which grows on the surface of the bottom of the sea. So here again, all the plants, they seem to be going gray because they are losing color, because it is time of their death. They are going to come to an end before they are regenerated again. Then in the last line, you have the word despoil. Now this despoil, maybe you've not heard of this word earlier. Despoil means, simply put, it is to spoil oneself, but here it means to shed their leaves. Despoil, they shed their leaves, because it's again autumn season. It's the time of fall season. It is time of all the plants shedding their flowers and leaves. So again, on the surface of the sea at the bottom, again the same thing is happening as was happening on top, that is on the surface of the land, surface of earth. And this is referring to the vegetation at the bottom of the sea, which mimics the change of the season on the land, and it is also very, very strongly influenced by the west wind. So these are basically the main difficult words which I have just highlighted. You can read them. Now, I'll just quickly go through what the poet is trying to say in this paragraph. Basically, he's trying to talk about the effect of the west wind on the sea and the vegetation that grows at the bottom. Again, he is addressing the west wind, and he says that you woke the Mediterranean from its summer dreams, because it was the summer season has been, quite extensive, and it has lulled everyone into a sweet sleep which is full of dreams. But that sea, which till now lay wrapped up in its crystal clear currents, and which was snoozing near an island made of volcano rock in the Bay of Bay near Naples. But now it is being awakened by the west wind. And in the waters of the bay, you could see the ruins of the old palaces and towers. Now, these are maybe cities which have been, submerged in the water's depth, in the sea's depth, because as you know, because with the passing of time, there are many geographical changes that take place, and sometimes cities which existed due to certain movement of the land, or due to certain phenomenons like earthquake or volcanoes, they get submerged under the water. In our own Hindu mythology, you have a reference of the Dwarika city, which was, it is said that it was submerged under the waters. So, something like that. And he says that the Mediterranean Sea seems to be dreaming and imagining and looking at all the old palaces and towers which are now submerged under the thick waves of the water. Then these ruins were overgrown with sea plants, and all these sea plants seem to have a bluish tint because of the moss and because of the flowers that are growing on them. You must have often seen that the buildings which are no longer occupied by people, they usually are, overgrown with weeds, overgrown with the plants, overgrown with the, twining branches of creepers. So something like that is happening under the sea also, because all these buildings which have been submerged, all these palaces that are submerged, are now overgrown with creepers, and all these sea plants, they seem to be having a bluish color, and that is because of the reflection of the waters over them. And But at the same time they have a beauty of their own, and they are so beautiful that you almost faint when you think of them. Like for example, when you can smell some perfume, strong perfume of some flowers, your senses are kind of overtaken by this smell, and it kind of overpowers you and you almost feel faint. So, this effect can be felt by the sea himself. And when the sea looks at these flowers, or when the sea, smells the perfume of these flowers, it almost gets very, faint headed. So this is the effect of this vision of flowers that is, delineated by the poet on the Mediterranean Sea, that has been again personified as a male. Then you here, it's referring to the west wind, because the poet is addressing the west wind and is talking about the effect of the west wind on the Mediterranean Sea. And now he explains another effect that the west wind has on the sea, because when the west wind comes, the whole of the Atlantic Ocean, now he's talking about the Atlantic Ocean, and he says that the whole of the Atlantic Ocean's smooth surface, it kind of parts. There are furrows that are drawn on it, and these tall waves, these huge waves, they kind of part, and they form furrows. Now this is again an imagery that is a replication of the land where your fields are when they are being prepared. They have, the plants are ready to be cut, and you have those furrows, you have those long lines which have been demarcated, and all the fields are, cut in straight lines. So it's something like that. That same image is being highlighted here also, and it is the effect of the west wind. When it blows, the sea, the huge Atlantic Ocean, that also kind of parts way for it to flow easily. So the west wind has this effect on the Atlantic Ocean, that it forms into straight lines. On the surface you can see the furrows that are formed because of the speed of the west wind. And at the same time, deep below the surface, the sea flowers and the forests of the seaweed, which have leaves with no sap, when they hear your voice, they turn gray from fear. Now, not only on the surface of the sea, the west wind has, its power, it has the strong effect, but at the same time, the west wind also has the power over the vegetation, the flowers, the plants, the seaweeds that are growing at the bottom of the sea surface. So, all these plants, when they hear your voice, when they hear the west wind coming, they turn grey from fear. They start trembling, and because of that trembling, they start losing all their flowers and leaves. So, this is not actually, this is just a poetic way of describing. It's actually the autumn season which leads to the falling of leaves, whether it is on earth, whether it is on land, or whether it is under the sea surface. It's the same. The effect is the same, because the season is that of autumn, and it is the season of falling leaves. Everything is deflowering, everything is despoiling, everything is giving way, and everything that has turned old, everything that has lost life, which has become dried, this is going to now, drop off, and finally new regeneration is going to take place. So the effect of the west wind on these plants is also very apparent, and the poet is trying to emphasize this fact by again repeating the words here when he says, "Oh, here." Now, this is the third stanza, and you see that this is the third time that this is being repeated, because he wants to tell the wind, he wants to make the west wind hear all that he wishes to speak, all that he wishes to say to it. So he says, "Please listen to me, and please take note that how strong you are and what kind of effect you have on the sea. Now, the Mediterranean Sea or the Atlantic Sea, they are supposed to be massive, huge seas, which are supposed to be very powerful. Their waves are supposed to be very powerful. They are very vast, and they are magnificent. But at the same time, when the west wind blows, it seems as if they all give in, as if they all cave in, as if they bow down to the power of the west wind. So, this is the end of the third stanza, and in the first, second, and third stanzas, it's clearly the power of the west wing is being stated by the poet. He is kind of, building up his idea. He's building up the idea of the strength of the west wind and the effect that it has on these three things, or you can say the effect that it has on the planet Earth. So I'll end here now. And the last two paragraphs, which have a different kind of, there's a certain twist you can see to this, say to the story, or to the description that Shelley is giving us. So I'll do the last two stanzas in the next video. Meanwhile, please go through these word meanings. Please go through all the explanation that I have given, and read the poem once again. And thank you once again for your patient listening. Good day.